The biggest star of the NCAA tournament, Johnny Juzang, is back for his junior season. He spent his first season at Kentucky last year. He played for UCLA, where he became a national star in March, where he had 29 points in the Final Four against Gonzaga, shot 12 for 18 from the field, and nearly guided the Bruins to a championship, which nobody saw coming. They put number one seeded, undefeated Gonzaga on the ropes, but they ended up winning that game. But UCLA just never went away. That's a historically good game. Obviously, Jalen Suggs hit a half-court game winner, but Johnny Juzang does indeed return for his junior season. And the question from a lot of people is likely, well, can his stock get higher? The answer is yes. I absolutely think so. His stock is likely, 40 to 55. He would have gotten drafted, but in the second round, where not everything's guaranteed. You could get a two-way contract if you're drafted 52nd, which means you're going to spend time between the G League and the NBA. And sometimes if you're a guy like Luguentz Dort, you can play your way into a long-term NBA contract off a two-way contract like he did. But in other situations, you're just going to go through a bunch of different G League teams, and you're going to be called up to be with the NBA team a little bit probably, but they can only have you up for a certain amount of days. I think it's 45 days before they have to make a decision whether they want to keep you permanently on a real NBA contract or send you down or release you. So there's a lot of unknowns with two-way contracts if that's the route you're going to go. It's not an easy path, and Johnny Juzang can capitalize off his name, image, likeness in Westwood, make a good amount of money there. He's a well-known name, probably one of the more well-known college basketball players because of his performance in March, but that wasn't the guy he was all of last season. He was a bit inconsistent, which is also part of the reason why NBA teams probably were a bit hesitant to spend a first-round pick on him, because they want a guy who's going to change the trajectory of a team in the first round. In the second round, you can take a gamble. In the first round, that's how you continue picking. I mean, I guess he probably would have been a late first round pick. He wouldn't have been a lottery pick by any means. But in the lottery, you see a team like the Magic. They're always picking the lottery because they're terrible and make poor draft decisions all the time. And if you're a guy, and like Johnny Juzang, again, was never going to be a lottery pick. Maybe he will next year with a huge season. But that's just not the kind of risk you can take in the first round, taking a guy who was very inconsistent, sporadic most of last season scoring-wise. Had some games where he averaged and where he had 25, and then the next two he combined for 10. That's just the kind of guy he was last season, but I think he'll be a lot more consistent next season. UCLA has a really good team around him. At the one, you have Tiger Campbell leading the charge, a very steady point guard who makes a lot of plays and can attract a lot of defenders, opening up shots for other players on the floor. Some good driving kicks coming from Tiger Campbell for sure. At the 2, you have Johnny Juzang. At the 3, you have a top 10 recruit, Peyton Watson, who's playing for the U19 men's national team for the United States. He's a very good 3-and-D wing. At the 4, you have Jaime Jaquez, who is also an integral part of what this UCLA team was able to do last season. I think he's in for another big year, and he could even put his name on NBA radar next year. At the 5, you have Miles Johnson coming in from Rutgers. He's a very steady interior defensive presence. He blocked a ton of shots. Nothing's going to come easy against him inside. He struggles from the free throw line. He can finish at the basket, but he's very limited on the offensive end. But defense is his calling card. Cody Riley showed an improved offensive skill set in the NCAA tournament. Can he sustain that for a whole season? He'll likely come off the bench behind Miles Johnson, but they'll likely split minutes because Johnson is really foul prone also. We saw last year at the Rutgers, they split minutes between Johnson and Cliff Amorie. So I'd assume we see the same kind of thing with Cody Riley and Miles Johnson. Last year we saw the first 2 years of Cody Riley's career splitting minutes with Jalen Hill, who's no longer on the team. He retired from basketball. So we could see the same kind of thing from Miles Johnson, Cody Riley. They bring different elements to the game. And then off the bench you have a guy like Jake Kyman who can come in and get a bucket from 3. You have Jules Bernard, another very good 3-and-D player, really good shooter from outside, smooth lefty, can drive to the basket. I think he is in for a big season whenever Juzang leaves, whether that's after his junior season. Bernard's a senior this year, but I think he could be a guy that used the extra year of eligibility to become a star for UCLA, but he had a vastly improved junior season, went from 5 points a game to 10 points a game, shot 40% from three. He is a very good player that I wouldn't be surprised to see him be in the G League, maybe get a two-way contract if he improves a good amount. David Singleton off the bench, and another potential breakout candidate. I don't know if the scoring will be there because of how many options they have on the offensive end, but Jalen Clark is a good player, a really smooth defender, good athlete. I think Jalen Clark is a really solid piece for the Bruins next season. Rebounds at a high level for a guard/wing player. He's going to be a solid piece next season. You have Kenneth Nuba coming back, who took a couple key charges in the NCAA tournament against Michigan. That was a tight game, an ugly game, a defensive game, but Kenneth Nuba was key. He didn't do a lot on the stat sheet, but he drew some charges, I believe 2 or 3, that became huge down the stretch of that game. You get Mac Etienne back for another year. He played seldom last year. He came from high school mid-season and then got in the mix a little bit, but he's more of a future player. But UCLA is going to be a good team next year. Most have them in their top 5. I have them top 15. I'm a little skeptical because before the NCAA tournament, they're a team that lost 4 games in a row before entering the big dance, where they almost missed because of their inconsistencies down the stretch, including a loss to Oregon State in the Pac-12 tournament where they absolutely just blew the game. They had that game in hand, and they just couldn't make free throws down the stretch or turn the ball over. That just was a game they had, and they lost. And UCLA really, really struggled. I mean, you look at that Taj Edey shot against USC. So there were some games like that where they just, barely lost, but there were some other games where they should have won. They lost to Stanford late in January. Oscar de Silva had a wide open layup. Nobody even decided to contest him, and that ended up being a loss to a bad Stanford team. So UCLA was really inconsistent last season, so that's part of the reason why I'm a little bit skeptical heading into next year. I had them top 15. They could end up being top 10. We'll see how I readjust my rankings, but the Bruins are going to be really good next year. Mick Cronin has it going in Westwood, and they will be back in the dance next year. Of course, maybe they'll be a 1 or a 2 or a 3 seed, but they'll be a team that is widely recognized as a potential powerhouse again after winning all those rings with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and being good for all those years. It's been a rough past decade for UCLA, but I think they're back into being a prominent team in college basketball, up there with Duke and Kentucky and Kansas. They've been able to recruit good in the past. Like, you had Lonzo Ball, that was a good season. And they also had some other key players like Chris Wilkes and Jalen Hands in recent years, and it just didn't work out. They just weren't able to win enough. And I think now they have the kind of culture they need to win consistently, and they're going to be a team we talk about a lot deep into March the next 10 years. And Johnny Juzang is going to be a big part of that next season. The Bruins will be really good next year. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. And until next time, have a good one.